Sales Techniques, Best Practices for Closing in 2025. Closing in 2025, Why it Feels Harder and What to Do About It. If closing deals has felt harder over the last couple of years, you're not imagining it. Across many B2B segments, win rates still hover around 21%, which means most qualified opportunities end in closed lost or no decision. In 2025, getting to signature is less about clever closing lines and more about running a disciplined process that buyers can trust. The biggest shift is that closing is now a buying journey orchestration problem. Committees are larger, timelines are less linear, and buyers are more cautious about internal risk than they are excited about new features. Our best-performing teams treat closing as a series of micro-commitments that start in discovery and compound through stakeholder alignment, proof, and clear next steps. This is also why the top sales orgs put as much structure into late-stage execution as they do into outbound. Whether you run an internal SDR function or work with a sales development agency, your close rate will rise fastest when you standardize discovery, multi-thread every real opportunity, and run a follow-up cadence that matches how decisions actually get made. The 2025 buying reality: big committees, high friction, low patience. Modern B2B buying groups typically include 8 to 13 stakeholders, which changes what progress means in a deal. You're not persuading one champion, you're facilitating consensus across functions that care about different risks, different outcomes, and different definitions of success. If your team is still running single-threaded opportunities, you're not behind on technique, you're behind on reality. Gartner also found that 74% of B2B buyer teams experience unhealthy conflict during the decision process, and sellers who help teams align are far more likely to land what buyers later call a high-quality deal. That's why closing skills in 2025 look like clarity, stakeholder management, and risk reduction more than pressure tactics. The rep who can calmly surface concerns and reconcile competing priorities becomes the safest path forward. Finally, buyers are overloaded and selective. When 61% of buyers say they prefer a rep-free experience overall, and 73% actively avoid suppliers that send irrelevant outreach, your closing motion has to earn attention through relevance and value. In practice, that means your cold calling services, cold email agency efforts, and late-stage follow-ups must all feel consistent, specific, and buyer-led. Discovery is the most important closing technique. Most late-stage losses were created early. When discovery is shallow, you become a quote machine. Pricing and features dominate the conversation, discount pressure rises, and internal buyers can't defend the purchase. When discovery is strong, the close becomes a recap of what the buyer already agreed is urgent, measurable, and worth prioritizing. Operationally, we recommend a standardized discovery and closing checklist that your team uses on every serious opportunity. The point isn't to slow reps down, it's to prevent avoidable rework by capturing business impact, success metrics, timing, budget reality, and internal risk while you still have leverage. If that information isn't in CRM, the deal shouldn't move forward, because you're closing on hope, not consensus. The fastest way to improve close rate is to make discovery quantify the cost of doing nothing. Even directional estimates, time saved, risk reduced, revenue protected, give the buying team language they can reuse internally. That's also how you stay consultative in a world where buyers resist sales pressure. You're not pushing, you're helping them make the decision defensible. Multi-threading, turn a fragile deal into a coalition. Single-threaded deals are the #1 silent killer in complex B2B. When one contact controls access, the opportunity can stall the moment they get busy, lose influence, or leave the company. And with committees of 8 to 13 people, that risk is almost guaranteed. Gong's analysis shows multi-threading can increase win rates by roughly 130%, which is why we treat it as a non-negotiable closing standard. Make multi-threading a deal stage exit criterion. No proposal or commit stage without at least 2 to 3 engaged roles: economic, technical, and user. The best reps earn introductions by positioning it as a service to the buyer, not a demand for power. Would it help if we brought security into the next call so we can answer those questions directly and keep your timeline intact? That approach reduces friction and makes your champion look organized, not pressured. Consensus building also requires persona-specific proof. Finance wants ROI and risk mitigation. IT wants security and integrations. And operators want adoption and workflow fit. If you send one generic deck to everyone, you force your champion to translate your value. And translation is where deals go to die. In 2025, the best closers don't convince committees, they help committees agree. Mutual action plans. Replace end-of-quarter scrambles with structure. If your team relies on end-of-quarter discounting to pull deals over the line, you're usually seeing a planning problem, not a pricing problem. A mutual action plan, or MAP, changes the tone of the close from "Can you sign?" to "Are we still aligned on the plan we built together?" That shift matters because it turns the buyer into a co-owner of momentum instead of a recipient of reminders. A MAP should be simple enough that it gets used: clear milestones, owners on both sides, target dates, and the internal steps that actually slow deals down: security, legal, procurement, executive sign-off. When you document these early, you surface real risk while you still have time to mitigate it. You also create a natural reason to multi-thread because each milestone implies a stakeholder who must be involved. Treat every meeting as a chance to secure a calendar-worthy next step with a who, what, when commitment. If you end calls with "I'll send something over" or "Let me know what you decide," you're opting into drift. Strong closing teams confirm next steps live and then send a recap email that records decisions, open questions, and the path to signature. Follow-up that wins: persistent, multi-channel, and value-led. The data is blunt. Roughly 80% of sales require 5 or more follow-ups, yet around 44 to 48% of reps stop after a single follow-up. That gap is one of the most fixable leaks in modern revenue teams because it's not a talent problem, it's a process problem. When your cadence is inconsistent, your forecast becomes a reflection of who remembered to follow up, not which deals were most likely to close. Build a standard late-stage cadence of 5 to 12 touches over 2 to 4 weeks and make every touch earn its keep. Checking in isn't a reason to reply. A new insight, a relevant case study, a benchmark, or a stakeholder-specific FAQ is. This is where a strong outbound sales agency mindset helps even in late-stage deals: sequencing, consistency, and message continuity across channels. Also, stop treating email and calls as separate worlds. Reference your email in your voicemail in your LinkedIn message, and your call recap in your next email, so the buyer experiences one coherent narrative. When your cold callers, AEs, and SDRs all reinforce the same story, you create familiarity without spamming, and that's what keeps you in the deal when the buyer finally has internal attention. Personalization and AI scale relevance without losing the human close. Cold email and cold calling still work in 2025, but generic outreach is getting filtered out faster than ever. Benchmarks put average cold email reply rates around 5.8 to 8.5%, while highly personalized campaigns can reach 15 to 25% when targeting and message quality are strong. If you're asking prospects and buying committees for time, your outreach has to prove you understand their context before you ask for anything. Personalization is not just nice copy, it's a measurable lever. Some research shows personalized cold emails are about 2.7 times more likely to be opened and can generate significantly more responses than generic blasts. Used correctly, AI helps you do this at scale by suggesting angles, drafting stakeholder-specific follow-ups, and turning call notes into crisp recap emails that keep momentum moving. The key is to use AI to enhance, not replace, human judgment. Analytics should show you where deals stall by stage and persona, and coaching should focus on the moments that create slippage, weak discovery, missing stakeholders, vague next steps, and unaddressed risk. When you combine instrumentation with a repeatable playbook, you'll see whether you need better messaging, better qualification, or better execution, not just more activity. How to operationalize this playbook, and when to outsource. To make these techniques stick, bake them into your operating system. Add CRM validation rules so opportunities can't advance without stakeholder roles populated, and require a documented discovery checklist before proposals go out. Then run weekly, closing-focused coaching where managers review real late-stage deals, inspect recap emails, and role-play the hard parts, procurement pushback, we're going to wait, and internal consensus gaps. If your pipeline is full of poorly targeted opportunities, even great closing skills won't fully save you. This is where sales outsourcing can be the highest leverage move. A specialized SDR agency or B2B sales agency can improve top-of-funnel quality through better targeting, tighter list-building services, and consistent multi-channel sequencing. Done right, an outsourced sales team frees your AEs to spend more time on discovery, multi-threading, and mutual action plans, the activities that actually lift win rate. At SalesHive, we see this pattern across industries. The best closing teams pair a disciplined close process with an outbound engine that reliably produces in-profile conversations. If you're evaluating cold calling companies, a cold calling agency, or a cold email agency, prioritize partners who can support the full system, targeting, messaging, and consistent execution, so your team closes more of the opportunities you already work hard to create. If you want to learn more about how we approach outbound, you can start at saleshive.com.